Magicians of Reddit, what's one time where bringing up an audience volunteer didn't go as expected? I was in grade school when the administration brought in a magician for the students to watch in an assembly. For one of his tricks, he started by asking for 10 volunteers. After picking 10 students, he proudly said this will be a process of elimination. The first volunteer will have 30 seconds to pull apart these 2 rings. Then the second person will have 30 seconds, and so on until we reach the end. Should anyone be able to do it, they'll win. At this point his assistant walks into the room carrying a comically large teddy bear, like the kind Costco sells that are like 7 feet tall. Oohs and ahs and laughs all around. Well, let's get started, he says, and hands the rings to the first volunteer, who was a girl in my class, and go. The girl fidgets with them for 5 seconds, then hands it back to him separated. The magician just breaks character and says, "How did you do that?" She responds, "My brother has that trick. That bear had to sit in the corner of our classroom for the rest of the day." Man, I get that the magicians probably aren't top class material, but bringing basic tricks that a little grade schooler can learn and do to your show is just asking to get japed. Well, aside from the classic zero response to the ask for volunteers, my favorite would have to be when the audience member in question got scared, frustrated, and threw the cloth I had her hold at me and run away. Finally, a question I can answer. Please hold out your hand and take this card. Guy holds out his hand. No, the other one. Guy takes arm out of his jacket pocket to reveal a stump where his hand used to be. Was at a magic show on a date last year. The magician asked for a volunteer and a little girl no more than 5 runs up on stage. "Hi there, little girl. I'm insert magician name. What's your name?" "Catherine, but my friends call me Katie." "Oh, can I call you Katie?" "No." Then she ran back into the audience. Only trick done was embarrassing the magician. That is when you look dumbfounded and shocked at the audience a la Steve Harvey. Wait for the laughs to die down and then ask if there is anyone in the audience you can call Katie. This is a bit off topic, but I feel that it belongs here. My father is the son of a relatively well-known magician, and thus knows a lot of the tricks of the trade. One day he was with some friends at a place with a magician who went from table to table. When he reached my father, my dad challenged him to a somewhat duel, saying he could figure out any of his tricks. The man agrees, and begins doing a mind-reading trick, where he accurately described every tiny aspect of my father's childhood bedroom. My dad, of course, is blown away, as he had no clue how this man knew any of these things. The magician saw his face, laughed, and walked away saying, "Your dad and I are old friends. I stayed with them last week in your room. I recognized you from the pictures still up in your room." Even if not magic, that's still an impressive memory. I was at a dinner for a family member and there was a magician walking around doing tricks for all the tables. When he got to my table he did a few tricks and ended up talking to us for a bit and found out that I knew some magic tricks. He asked if I would want to do a trick for him and I said, "Sure." "Shuffle the deck and while you do, think of any card you want. Stop shuffling whenever you want to." He shuffled a few times and said he was thinking of a card. I told him to tell us what it was and that whatever card it was, it would be the 15th card in the deck. He looked at me like he knew I was bullshitting him, which I totally was, but he went along with it and said his card and counted out to the 15th card. It was his card. I was dumbfounded but didn't show it and the look on his face was priceless. I'm pretty sure you're just actually magic. I'm a street performer. I had this little bit in between other acts where I would ask a kid from the audience to come up on stage, without saying for what. Once he's there I tell him that he's going to juggle for us all. The kid is rightfully hesitant and a bit embarrassed, so I say some magic words and assure him that now he can actually juggle. He just needs to take it slowly and throw one ball at a time into the air. Once he decides to give it a try I just snatch or guide the balls while in the air and place them back into his hands so he can keep going. Basically assisted juggling. The act works by me pretending to be really impressed and amazed, and because the audience always supports the kid, because they can all imagine how horrible it would be to be in his place. So it ends with a kid getting thunderous applause and returning to the audience so proud that he can walk on water. All good fun. And then there's the one time I get a kid that it turns out can actually juggle. He's like 8 years old and for God knows what reason this kid is better with 3 balls than I am. So I hand him the balls and go, "And now you're going to juggle." The kid looks at me with glee, exclaims okay and just starts going to town. Crowd is going nuts, and I'm using all my concentration trying to pick my freaking jaw up from the pavement. The kid finishes his act, takes a bow, hands me the balls back, and return to the side of a man that I assume was his dad that is currently laughing so hard that he's blue in the face. Well folks, there's no goddamn way I can do anything to follow that act, so everyone give this boy another hand for blowing me the heck off stage. Funniest bit is that several people from the crowd came up afterwards and asked me if the kid was a part of the act. Frick no, I don't have a clue where that little crap came from. TLDR, you asked a kid to juggle your balls. He's better at it than you are. You state he blows you off the stage. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to come to the station, sir. Okay, so it wasn't a stage show, it was actually just a walk around thing where I was talking to some folks at a restaurant. I have a table of 4 people, 3 of whom are women who are thoroughly enjoying my stuff. The other person was an older woman, in her late 70s early 80s if I had to guess, and the oldest person at the table by 3 decades, who, far from being uninterested, seemed to be getting angrier and angrier as I was performing. In an effort to include her and hopefully get her to have some fun, I asked for her help with something. Fine. I asked her to hold out her hand, and asked one of the other diners if I could borrow $1. I then pulled out a card deck and went into a trick where I'll link the playing card to the dollar bill, and whatever happens to one happens to the other. A variation of Nate Kranzo's voodoo bill for those who are interested. I shuffle the card into the deck, put it in the box, and put the box on the table beneath a wine glass. I hand my participant the dollar, and have her fold it. She does, slowly and with jerky, agitated movements that have nothing to do with her age. I then slide the cards out of the box, to reveal that the card has folded itself inside the deck. Yay, magic. Her 3 companions are sufficiently wowed. She is unimpressed. She looks me in the eye and says burn it. I'm sorry? Burn the dollar so it burns the card. Well, actually, the second phase of that trick is to do exactly that, but in reverse, burning the card and having the damage also appear on the dollar. So I said I tell you what, how about I burn the card, and that way if it doesn't work you still have the dollar? She looks supremely skeptical but agrees. So, I take out a lighter, and burn one corner of the card while she holds the bill in her fist. I use the "you may feel the card heating up a bit" line. That works about 75% of the time. Most people will nod or at least be wary of the card getting too hot. This time, I get an eye roll. Okay, fine. I wave the card to put the fire out, leaving it with one scorched corner. I have grandma open her hand to reveal the bill also has one scorched corner now. This serious, stiff, sarcastic, octogenarian woman who has bought precisely 0 of my balls thus far, throws the bill down, stands up so quickly she knocks over her chair and nearly falls. Has to be caught by the woman seated next to her that I later learned was her granddaughter, and is ushered off to the bathroom while calling me a demon and a worker of evil loud enough for most of the restaurant to hear. I apologized to the other 2 ladies who were with her for upsetting her, but I don't think they heard me over their own laughter. As I was leaving, manager told me not to do that trick if I came back. I'd count that as a win. I was at a fakir show and he chose me to do a trick with broken glass. The setup. There was broken glass all over the floor. He would lie down on his stomach and I would step down onto his back from a stool. Unfortunately, I was drunk and absolutely unable to stand unassisted on a stool. So while he was getting ready to lie down, I stumbled off directly into the broken glass with my bare feet. They were bare because I was about to stand on the fakir. The audience gasped, and I looked down in wonder at my totally not bleeding feet before announcing loudly, "Don't worry, guys, it's just plastic." LOL, this is great. That's hilarious. One time a magician trick required 3 volunteers to give up something AMD, so the magician suggested wedding rings. At the end he joked take the most expensive one. The first guy picked a ring, the second guy picked a ring, and then the third guy said this remaining ring isn't mine. The first guy actually took back the most expensive one. Not a magician, was the audience member. I was about 9 and the magician called me up to the stage. He had a mesh bag of lemons and a $20 bill. He told me to sign the bill and he would make it appear in one of the lemons. I reached into the bag and tried to grab one from the middle, but it was sewn in a way so that all the other lemons in the bag were in their own compartment and I could only physically grab one lemon. I looked him in the face and into his microphone. I loudly asked, "Why can I only grab this lemon?" He quickly finished the trick and ushered me off stage as quickly as possible. If you're defeated by a 9-year-old, you are not a good magician. How about a science trick instead? My daughter was watching a liquid nitrogen demonstration at the science center, and the demonstrator asked if any of the kids in the audience had a penny he could borrow. My daughter, who compulsively collects small objects, had apparently found a penny at some point in the day, so volunteered it with a level of enthusiasm only available to preschool-age children. She sat smiling away, so happy she could help out, so happy that her compulsion was useful instead of a nuisance for once. And then the demonstrator froze and shattered her hard-won penny treasure, right before her eyes. The look of shock and betrayal on my daughter's face was one of the most raw examples of human emotion I've ever seen. We tried to make it better, but all the pennies her grandparents and I had between us couldn't make it right. My wife still keeps a broken piece of that penny in her purse as a memento. Something similar happened to my sister, but it was with a bouncy ball and they had her drop it. I once saw a hypnotist get soaked with water by a guy he thought he hypnotized. Halfway through the show the guy grabs his water bottle, places his thumb across the hole, and squeezed all of the water onto the back of the hypnotist and just kept laughing. He was thrown out of the Ren Fair. Similar story, hypnotist was hired to come to our school and brought up a group of 10 of the students onto the stage. All was going well except one of the kids began to pretend he was hypnotized and being forced to taking off his own pants. Remember, this is a school, so the hypnotist got understandably pissed and told him to get off the stage. I swear frickin' high school kids sometimes. Was at a magic show in Vegas and my 10-year-old cousin got called up to assist. He had to zip the magician into a tent from the outside. Afterwards he stood in front waiting for something to happen. Well, the magician snuck out of the tent in a furry bear suit and came up behind my cousin. He then proceeded to literally scare the pee out of my cousin. Yup, he was so startled he peed his pants on stage. Needless to say, my entire party of 20+ family members got camped buffet passes. I'm not a magician, but my younger brother was called up to stage for a magic show and didn't go as the magician had expected. We were 7 and 8 at the time and were at a 4th of July celebration. Not that this is important, but we were both homeschooled and my mom had taught us the bones and muscles of the body and different stuff like that for fun. When my brother was up on stage, the magician explained that his wand was magic and would only stay straight if the correct body part was tapped by the wand and would bend like rubber if the wrong part of the body was touched. He handed my brother the wand and started off easy by asking him to touch his head, his knee, and other common parts of the body. Obviously, the wand didn't bend. Then the magician asked him to touch his radius. My brother touched it with the magic wand. It didn't bend. Then he asked him to touch his ulna. Again, didn't bend. Then he asked to tap his clavicle. My brother touched it correctly again and the wand never bent. Eventually the magician realized that he wouldn't be able to trick this 7-year-old boy and asked him how he knew all that. My brother just said he liked to read a lot and everyone laughed and he let him walk off stage. My parents got a kick out of that. I was half hoping that the part about bones and muscles wouldn't be relevant at all to the story and you just like throwing random asides into your posts. I was a spectator for this one, watching a street busker tell everyone he's going to make a balloon animal for someone and asks for a volunteer. All the little kids are jumping up and down and he picks a little girl. He tells her and everyone that she's going to get a balloon dog. Then he hands her a deflated balloon and tells her she has to make it herself. Then he turns his back on her and goes into his patter talking to the audience and not watching her. It is clear from his patter that she is not supposed to be able to make a balloon dog. Nevertheless, without pause she inflates the balloon and makes a dog. Audience is cracking up until he turns around and realizes she did it. She could have been a plant. But the trick stalled out at that point and he just moved on from there, never saw how it was supposed to end. So I think it wasn't planned. When I was in college they hired a magician, but his thing was as a hypnotism and sleight of hand. The hypnotism part was pretty amazing, but in between his first hypnotism and second, he did some sleight of hand stuff. He did a card trick and put it in the guy's pocket, but so the audience could watch. He was really good. A very attractive girl who was a classmate of one of my friends, defiantly not part of his act, volunteered to go on stage. She's hot, so the magician jumped at the chance. He started doing a trick with her, where he was hiding a ball or something, but all the while tried to steal her watch. She blocked it the first time, moving at the last second by accident. Then the second time he was successful and the crowd giggled. Then all of a sudden, this hot 19-year-old started flirting with the magician. It was really weird. As he went about the rest of his trick he was distracted, but pulled it off masterfully. At the end he did the reveal. "Oh, do you want your watch back?" Sure, she projected, half turned to the audience like a trained performer. "I'll trade you for your business card holder," and she produced a sliver clamshell business card holder from her back pocket. The magician was blown away, not in a "how freaking dare you" way, but amazed and delighted that this young woman pulled one over on him. She just leaned into the mic and said, "My dad's a magician too." The crowd went crazy. "And for my next trick I'm going to need your phone number so I can steal your heart." You have been visited by the cook dog. Comment: without food there is no paradise, so that you never burn the stakes. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.